This video is about basic music notation, so we'll just get started by making our standard music note. I make a circle, I'm going to color the circle in, and I'm going to make a stem that is sticking up. Notice that the stem is after the note. I don't want to put it in the middle or before it. It always goes right after it. And I'm going to make 4 of these notes, which I call quarter notes, but I want something a little easier and quicker to say than quarter because I want a word that I can say to represent each note when I want to say it out loud with my voice. So each of these is going to be called ta, T-A. That allows me to say all 4 tas in a row, and I'm going to say them fairly evenly. You can feel free to try it with me. Ta, 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 ta. So these 4 beats represent 4 even sounds, even divisions. If I was taking a walk and I'm going left, right, I try not to make anything quicker or slower. However, in order for you and me to be able to say this together, or for a whole group to be able to say or play something together, we need to know how fast we're going, and we need to know exactly when we're going to start. So before I start anything, I always like to go 1, 2, here we go. I'll say 1, 2, here we go, and then immediately follow it by saying the 4 tas. So try that with me. If you hear me saying this, you'll know to get ready. 1, 2, here we go. Ta, 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 ta. Now, if you hear me saying this, what I call a count-off, if I've just said 1, 2, and you can catch up on the here we go, then you'll have a head start. We'll be ready to actually start right together. At any point in this video, feel free to pause it and have a look at some of the exercises. Try them for yourself. Try saying the count-off and saying the 4 tas. So I suggest that you try that right now. Now I'm going to move on to something slightly different. I'd like to take my last ta and remove it. And instead, I'd like to put a rest, R-E-S-T, and that is just the music word for no sound here. So there are still 3 tas, but then where the last ta was, there's going to be a rest, and the musical symbol for that is a letter Z, but hold on, I stay connected right here, and I'm just going to hook a little letter C underneath. Let's just try one more of those. A Z and then a C makes a rest. So let's try this out. 1, 2, here we go. Ta, 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 rest. Now, of course, I said the word rest there, which might kind of be missing the point. We wanted to have no sound. So I'm going to put this in parentheses, and I'm going to remind myself not to say anything here. I might pretend to say the word rest. I might move my mouth, but there will be no sound. Ready? 1, 2, here we go. Ta, ta, ta. Now, if I were learning to play a drum, or I was clapping my hands, or some other instrument, I might actually say the word rest there and remind myself not to make any sound with my instrument. It will help me to learn. Later on, eventually, we want to be able to play the instrument without actually saying anything. All of these words will be in our head, and we'll hear 3 hits on our drum and then no sound here. One more thing I want to point out before we move on is that all of these notes are in a row with each other. This represents an instrument like a drum or like clapping our hands, where they all make essentially the same sound. So I'm going to draw a line going straight through here to show that each of these is in the same place. I don't have a note made higher up or a note made lower down, but they're all essentially the same sound. Now I'd like to add something. Let's start again with our 4 quarter notes, which I was saying ta for. They all are a circle with a stem, and they all are filled in. But I'd like to make a change to one of these. Now, previously, we changed one of them into a rest by just erasing it and drawing a rest there instead, and it doesn't make any sound. And we could do that to any one of these. The first one could be a rest, the second one could be a rest, both of the middle ones could be rest, and that just means that I still feel the beat. I might even pretend to say the word rest, but there will be no sound out loud. The next change I'd like to do is instead of making something into 0 sounds, I'd like to make it into 2 sounds. So I choose my 3rd beat here, and I'm going to make my 3rd beat have a double. Instead of just a single quarter note, my 3rd beat has a double, 2 notes. They're each a circle, a stem sticking up, and they're connected across the top. Now I will use the same syllables that I've used so far. Ta for every beat. But notice that now I have a note in between a beat. If I were walking and going left foot, right foot, this note actually happens while my foot is in the air. So I need a word for that in-between note. I'm going to call it D, D-I. So if you remember our count-off from before, where we said 1, 2, here we go, we can now say that, followed immediately by this new pattern. Ready? 1, 2, here we go. Ta, 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 dee, ta. Again, I encourage you to pause the video, practice that a few times. Make sure that you get the feel for squeezing this note in between the other ones. Here's an example just made by the computer, so it looks a little more solid, little neater than my writing, but it works the same way. We have a ta, ta, D connected together, and ta at the end. Let's take a look at something else. Here is a pattern which is only slightly different from the last one, and you should be able to figure out based on what you know so far. Each beat will start with a ta, but then we've got those connected notes, the ones that squeeze in between. If this one is a D, then this one must also be D. Let's try it out. 1, 2, here we go. Ta, dee, ta, ta, dee, ta. These double notes are referred to as eighth notes, just as a single one is called a quarter note, but that doesn't really affect what we're doing right now. Those are just the standard names for that kind of note. Here we have a number of different patterns using everything we've learned so far. We have quarter notes, we have eighth notes where I say ta, di, and we've got a rest where I might say rest or I might try not to say anything. If I've got a bunch of these patterns, which are each made a group of 4 things, I might have them pushed together so that the same line is going through all of them. But I want to still make sure that I can see the separation between one group and the next. So I'm just going to draw this little dividing bar line to show that there are 4 things here, 4 over here, group of 4 here, and 4 here. That's including the rest. Let's just try this pattern. 1, 2, here we go. Ta, 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 dee, ta, ta, dee, ta, dee, ta, dee, ta, ta, dee, ta, ta, dee, ta, 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 ta. I decided not to say the word rest there. It's okay if you did, as long as you can remind yourself that whenever you're playing an instrument or clapping your hands or something, there really should be no sound there. So again, I encourage you to pause the video here, practice saying this entire pattern by yourself, and let your voice have a little bit of interest, a little bit of inflection. If it sounds really boring, it's going to be less musical, and we'd actually like to make this kind of fun, and also we want to start getting the feel for how the music will really sound. We want to give it a little more interest. But I'd like to add one more new thing. So let's go back to having just our first 4 quarter notes, which are each ta, 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 and they're all filled in. And before, I did change the third one and make it into a double. So I'm going to do that again. I'll make it a double. They're connected. So this is ta, this is D. And now I'd actually like to squeeze something else in between. In between these two, I'd like to put another note. In between those, I'd like to put another note. So now I'm changing my third beat into a group of 4. And these 4 are connected, and they're actually going to be double connected. 2 lines across the top. I still have ta in its same place and D in its same place. I'm going to call this second sound in here ka, and this last one mi, so that my entire sound is takadimi. So now let's try this out. 1, 2, here we go. Ta, ta, takadimi ta. So practice that a couple times. Also, we could put the whole takadimi over here on the first beat, on the second beat. It could be takadimi, takadimi, takadimi ta. There are many combinations you could create, and many combinations you'll see written down in music. One more slightly different thing. So far, we've done 1 sound on a beat, 0 sounds, 2 sounds, 4 sounds. Obviously, the sound that we've missed is having 3 sounds. So if I just make 3 notes, I'm going to connect them with a single line across the top, and traditionally I write a number 3. Now it's still going to begin with ta, as always, ta. These other sounds are just going to be ki and da. So, takida. 1, 2, here we go. Ta, ta, takida, ta. And that's about all we need for now.